Good morning, everybody. Mr. Jamnik here. Moving along with Module 11 with the I can solve equations with addition and subtraction. So we worked on the variable, we worked on the inverse, which means the opposite, and then doing one side, you have to do the other to figure out the problem and then retrace your steps. So now we're going to be working on the open-ended problems, the word problems that you're going to see. So I'm going to show you one example, and then throughout the week, these are the types you're going to see. And then again, I want you guys to really think about when you're working on this. Always go back to what we did, every day before class when we started. We did the problem of the day, right? The P, P, P. This is truly going to help you solve when you're doing this because there's a lot of information here. And when we're looking at this, you have to see what makes sense and what you're pulling out. What's the key information that you need, right? That makes sense to the problem. How are you going to use that for your protocol? And then, which way are you showing it? Are you going to draw an example? So let's read it first. A wildlife reserve had 8 elephant calves born during the summer and now has 31 total elephants. How many elephants were in the reserve before summer began? So you may need to read this 2 or 3 or 4 times to really understand. So a wildlife reserve. So this is where they take the animals in. They take care of them, kind of like a zoo. That's based obviously for elephants. So a wildlife reserve had 8. So we know that yes, absolutely, 8 is going to be something that we're going to need. Had 8 elephant calves born during the summer and now has 31 total. Okay, how many elephants were in the reserve before summer began? So what else is going to be important for us to really understand when we have to write the equation? So the main thing is you're going to have to write your own equation, and then what you do to one side, you do to the other, and then the answer that you get is obviously needs to apply to what the questions ask. So as we're going through this, we know that Wildlife Reserve had 8 elephants. Calves, definitely very important because the elephant is the main thing that we're focusing on. Okay, born during the summer and now has 31 total elephants. So how many elephants were in the rescue? So again, you can go on in how many elephants were in the reserve. And the key thing here I'm going to show is before the summer began. Okay, because many people may just say, oh, I'm just taking the 31 and I'm adding the 8. Okay, but that's not what the question's asking. You got to read into it. That's why, again, I make sure you guys go back to the problem probing protocol, is to take out the key information. What is really jumping out to you that makes sense? We have the 8 elephant calves that were born during the summer and now has 31 total elephants. How many elephants were in the reserve before the summer began? So we need to find the number that was below the 31. You can see I put a cubes around the number. So that's what I need to focus on. I have the elephant, which is obviously what we're focusing on, and then the how many, and the key thing is before. So when I'm looking at this and I'm writing it, I'm trying to think now, I need to find what letter to me is going to make the most sense to use for my variable. You want to focus on the specifics of the question to put your variable. The questions that we did before this, I use the letter X. And that's just giving examples that we're using. But when you guys really have the word problems, that's when you guys have to look at the question itself, the open-ended, and look from start to finish. What is the key word that's going to make me know that this variable makes the most sense? Some people may say like W for wildlife or S for summer, okay? But then I know that the main thing that we see that we're focusing on is that I underline twice is what? Elephants and then total elephants. So we want to use the letter E for our variable. So we're going to do E, okay? That's step number 1. So I'm going to put here for you guys, that is the variable, okay? And again, E stands for elephants. It makes the most sense. That's what letter you need to use because, again, the question at the end says how many elephants were in the reserve before summer began. So the final answer you're going to need to get is telling me how many elephants were used before the summer began. So now I have to think about, all right, before the summer began. So we know we have E is the variable. We need to figure out the operation. We need to figure out the whole number. We know it has an equal sign and then the other number. So if we're looking at what's the answer that we need to have, what's the total? In the summer, it now has a total of what? 31. So 31 will not go here as a whole number because that's the number we need to use to determine how many were before. So what we're going to do is take the 31, and that's going to be here. That is our total that we're going to work on. So now we need to find what is going to be the operation we're going to use and what number are we going to use. So again, retrace, use the problem probing protocol to think about it. So a wildlife reserve had how many elephant calves born during the summer? 8 is our main focus right now. That's why the 8 is going here. We are going to have to use the 8 to determine how many were before. So I keep saying the word before, and you can see it like, my hands, I'm going back. I'm retracing. So that should be something key for your operation. Remember, we're only working on addition and subtracting. So which operation is going to make the sense to give us? Now, I know a lot of people are going to jump out and say, yeah, you had to subtract. Okay, yes, absolutely. However, when we're working with writing the equation to do the opposite from one end to the other, we want to start off with addition. And the reason why we do this is that we have E, let me erase this for you guys. We have E plus 8 equals 31. Okay, this is the correct operation and equation and variable because once we do this, then what is the opposite of positive 8? The opposite of positive 8 is negative 8, and that's going to give us our true statement to figure out how many elephants were before the summer. So watch as I do the next problem, and then you'll see why we can't just put E minus 8 first. So what I'm going to do is, again, retrace. E is my variable. Opposite is negative minus 8 and minus 8. There we go. Now you can see maybe how it's coming into place, understanding how many elephants were in the reserve before summer began. Before. So what's the variable? E is now by itself, right? Just like we went over. The 8's cancel out. Equals, what is 31 minus 8? And we should have an answer of 23. Now, if you look at this, now take a second to think about it, okay? So this is the correct statement because now it's telling us that there was 23 elephants before the summer began. And then with the total that we're using, we're going to have the 31. So this is how we're figuring out. So if I wrote this operation, so watch what I do here. Let me bend this up for you guys. Okay? Same, I do elephant minus 8 equals 31. This is where you guys need to go back and double check, and this is why I said retrace your steps. It's okay if you thought it was this first, but then you're going to see based on the problem why it can't be the answer. You know the final answer has to be the 31. It has to be 31 because it's telling you it now has 31 total elephants. So watch what happens now when we do this. So what's the opposite of a negative 8? You're going to get a positive 8, right? And here you're going to get a positive 8. So let's think about this now. Same thing. You bring down the E for elephant. The 8's cancel out. Equals. But now we did the opposite. So we did 31 plus 8 is going to be what? 39. So now let's take a look. Okay. This is a good thing too that you guys can work. Maybe do both. Maybe that's going to help you guys understand. If the answer we know that's saying it has to be a total of 31 elephants, and if we did minus 8 equals 31, and we did the opposite of both sides of the inverse and got plus 8, my final answer is a 39. Well, how's that possible? If it's 39 total elephants, the problem itself is taking 31. This is where you guys really need to remember we do with the boxes, the setup, with the probing, the problem, the protocol. This is truly going to help you. This is where you guys need to do both. And then really look at the answers. So if you have E equals 39, or if you have E equals 23, then you should know, well, let me see. If the elephant total is 31, and I have to focus on how many were before, we know that the answer can't be 39, because obviously it's bigger than the answer itself. So that's why we can work backwards, retrace our steps, look at the key numbers that we're using, the key vocabulary that stands out to us, and what really is helping us gather the information that we know that, yes, so there was 23 elephants before, and now with the addition of the 8, we have a total of 31. So this problem here is the correct. So it's okay to do both, but always do both. Just don't say that this is the answer and I'm done. Because if you retrace and you kind of think about it, if you had to explain, okay, how'd you get 39? You may say, oh, I did this, I worked at 31, but then you may, oh, wait a second. Now I'm realizing that there's only 31 total elephants. How am I getting 39? You're adding on elephants that weren't in the problem. So the key thing is that you're focusing on the numbers and vocabulary that you're using, which is before. So the true statement should be E, which is the variable that you need to figure out that makes sense based on, the open-ended question. So E stands for elephant. We're adding 8, and we need to get an equal of 31. And again, the reason why we're using plus 8 is that we have to work the opposite, the inverse of what we're doing. In this case, we need to work before. So then we're going to do the variable itself stays the same. The positive 8 goes to a negative 8, negative 8 on both sides. These 8s cancel out. You have 31 minus 8, which gives you 23 elephants in the reserve before the summer began. Okay, so when you're looking at these problems and you're looking at the independent practice, make sure that you guys are continuing to draw the boxes just like we did with the problem probing protocol, and really start to take out what bits of information. Draw a picture. It's okay. Do the wildlife. Draw a picture of a zoo that has the 31 total elephants, and then you're taking the 8, and you need the before. Draw the picture, draw circles, or a symbol. You can even use your computer to figure out the different forms that you want to use. Anything that you want. There's thousands of possibilities. You just have to think about what's going to make the most sense, because on a word problem like this, you can't just say the answer is 23. You literally have to show and justify and explain your reasoning of how you came to an answer of 23. Because if I look at that and say, okay, 23 is great, then if I say, okay, can you please explain how you're getting that, you can explain the process that you did, just like we've been doing to the I can statement of solve equations with addition and subtraction. So this is why you need to retrace your steps and really think about what it pertains to the question. And this is what you're going to see how you start to work on all the HOT questions and then different resources that you're going to see based on Module 11. So keep this process in mind. Think about what you're doing. Take your time. Work backwards. Do the extra step. There's no reason not to. So you can truly look at both yourself and say, wait, okay. Now you can see 23 and 39 based on 31. Then you can start to figure out the math component and how one applies and one doesn't. And then you'll be, you'll have the realization that, you can really, you took out that work. You really, truly understood of what you're doing. So you can explain to me. And you can explain through many different ways. Like I said, the diagrams are a great way to do it. Circling the key numbers, justifying what you're doing, showing the math, and showing the steps and process. Most important things. So then I can look and say, okay, you did both. You did both here. And then you can say, well, this one's incorrect because, and then explain. And then you can say this one is the correct sequence and explain. So now you're really doing, above and beyond with the multi-step equation to show me the incorrect way and the correct way, and then figure out how it pertains to the open-ended. So use this as a guide, continue to use the process, and think about this as you guys work on this week with the addition and subtraction with equations and doing the inverse of the numbers. Okay? Keep up the great work. Keep checking out my YouTube for the videos, and reach out if you have any problems whatsoever. Have a great rest of the day. I'll see you guys soon.